Hey guys, Greg here from O'Neill's Fish. Today I'm going to talk to you about guppies and what sort of guppies we have, what goes with guppies and general care of guppies. There are many types of guppies. You've got like cobra types, double swordtail types, pintails, single swords and just your general fancy ones. I'm going to talk all about that today. Okay, so what are the first things we want to look at with guppies? One is they're one of the easiest fish to look after out of all fish. The other thing is that there's no eggs, so if you're wanting to have lots of little fish in a hurry, it's easy enough done as they have live birth. There's also the water parameters you have to look at, and they've got a general sort of area of around about 6 through to about 7.5, so they're like a neutral water. As you can see, there's some very nice variants of guppies out there. Now, compatibility, what you want to look at for compatibility is to do with smaller fish of the same sort of nature. Platies are good ones to go in with swords, as well as bristlenose. I would tend to stay away from swordtails, so they tend to be quite boisterous. The other things to avoid would be like larger tetras, but smaller tetras like neons are pretty good, or cardinals, or anything small. The other thing is people talk about community fish. Now, there are different levels of community fish. For instance, you have African community fish, and you only keep Africans in that community. The other communities that people talk about are your fish like these, but for instance you wouldn't want to put these with angels or gouramis or anything large or larger tetras that can do them harm or rip their tails. And then you've got other fish like barbs and danios that quite heavily nip at their tails, and you'll find little holes all over the tails and they start to look not so good, and they can harass them and cause deaths as well. So it's always important to be mindful of what sort of fish goes with what. A local fish store should be able to give you good information, good advice as to what will go well with your guppies and how to take care of them as well, as this video is also going to try and show as much of that as possible. The other parts of looking after guppies is very simple and very easy. They give off live birth and the young grow quite fast. Now that could be a problem for your babies, as they are quite predatory in some senses, so they will be cannibalistic and eat your babies. And that's just a natural thing of most live bearers. Okay, the other thing is as well, if you have a whole different generation of babies, they tend to leave them alone. Like in this tank here, you can see from the very small to the in-between. And the reason why they're not eating the babies is because they're all different sizes and it confuses them. So in order to start that off, you have to have some sort of cover, like a lot of plant cover, wood, and various other forms of plant. The other thing is that you've got to look at is feeding them generally, once or twice a day, and this will also stop them if they start to get a bit hungry, and they do start to pick at their little ones. Other things to know about these guys is like there's different colours, different varieties. These are different variety again. When selecting guppies, you will want to make sure that the fish is active and swimming around, that their eyes are quite bright, their fins are open, they're flirting, and not just sitting on the ground looking like their fins are all clamped or pale in complexion and their eyes are very clouded. Those are the fish you want to leave alone. There are plenty of places you can get bad fish from and not realise it. Being mindful of diseases, that there are no sort of sickly looking patches or white patches, or that their fins don't look like they're rotting away, that their fins are very clear and distinctive. There is a difference between fins that have been a bit nibbled at compared to white clouding around the edges, which will affect the guppy in a major way, because things like fin rot set in that could kill the guppy right out. And if it doesn't kill the guppy, eventually it will always look bad for life. Once a guppy's tail is depleted, that area will look pretty bad for good. So be mindful of colour, fins and activity. An active fish is a happy fish. Anything bent over, you can get deformities, and those fish will be no good for breeding. They just breed other bad fish, so also be mindful of that. Now it's always fun to have babies in your tank and for other fish to be born, and there are various ways of doing this. One way is through using a net breeder, where you take the female out and you know she's pregnant, because you'll see that there are some females in there that are quite round and gravid, where others aren't, just more slender. The ones around and gravid, they go dark at the back and they almost look box complexion in some ways. And those are the ones you know they're going to get close to having babies or will have babies. So you want to take them out and put them in what's called a net breeder or a guppy breeder. Okay, these are various things you use for breeding guppies or having the mums separated and she can give birth into. This one here is what they refer to as a holding net or a net breeder. This one's a little bit different to a lot of them because it does not have any of the platforms that are in the middle, which have usually a grate where the babies can fall through and the mum cannot get to them. So in that design it's not foolproof, but you'll probably find they won't eat that many with a single pregnant female. I would only suggest one female to a breeder because you would have the problem of the other one eating the babies as they come out. So this is one way of keeping them safe and separated. As soon as the mum's finished, you take the mum out and pop it into the tank, or you could have and then you could possibly take the babies out of that or grow the babies even for a little bit and put them into the main tank or into a separate tank. Now the other breeder we have here is a plastic breeder. It's a little bit different. So this one here has a little grate. This is designed to hook onto the side of your tank. So it hooks onto the glass and sits inside the tank. So this is underwater. It has a grate for where the babies when the babies are born, they go through the grate and into the main tank. So you wouldn't have this where all the other guppies are to eat them, but in a separate tank. So this is a good thing for that sort of breeder. So these ones are quite good, and there's plenty of room in these ones. You can get smaller cramped up ones, but I tend not to use those because they get stressed and some of them die. They hold on to their babies and they don't want to let them go. So those are the reasons. So this design here is probably one of the better designs. I've heard of people making their own, which is not a bad idea, out of like strainers and that kind of thing. So yeah, the other stuff what I prefer to do, and I do a lot of, is having things like Indian fern or water sprite. So if you look up here, you can see a lot of little babies just in amongst the weed, and they stay safe from mum or dad trying to have a nibble at them. So they'll, if anything tries to go after them, they go up into the top and they'll hide in there. Guppies naturally come to the top. Okay, we have another tank over here as well that has a lot of fern, and this is ideal for breeding guppies when it's caked like this. So getting some Indian fern or water sprite is a good idea, and that will help keep your baby safe, and it won't stress mum out in the breeder. It should give birth into there, and most of the guppies will survive because they won't be able to be touched as they hide in the areas where the adults can't go. It can be fed the same way with little flake or baby powder, you know, baby fish food powder. We are going to go and talk about foods now. Right, when it comes to foods, this is the kind of things we're going to look at for foods. Also to bear in mind, also the compatibility, as I was saying before. In this case, I'm going to add to do with food is that you have to watch out for some of the faster swimmers or other fish that may compete for your food for your guppy, because you do not want them to starve or not get enough. The other problem is that we do not want to give them too much. A fish should be able to eat as much as it can do in 5 minutes. If there's any left over, then you're feeding it too much. They do not need a lot of food at all. They only need a little bit. That's about the size of their eyeball, which is kind of their stomach size. So what we're looking at here is a mixture of foods. So we can mix our foods together to make a whole thing. Anyway, there are different foods you can get. Some aren't so good and some are quite good. Now you want to get yourself a hold of quality flake and quality foods as well. So in this case here we have some quality colour enhancing flake. Okay, now what I'm talking about quality with colour enhancing is there's no major nutritional value in the colour enhancing. It does enhance the colour, so that alone is no good, so you want to mix that with something else. So there's a colour enhancing flake, and this will enhance the colour of your fish. So if we go across now to spirulina, all guppies tend to need some sort of vegetable matter in their diet. You'll find that they will eat a lot of algae that are grown on the side. I wouldn't call them algae eaters, simply because they don't clean up the same way. So the spirulina is very good for them, and they need that in their diet. It's a good flake food that sits on the top where they can get at it, and is also very nice for their digestion. The other stuff we have here is like powder type foods, which is really good for and very nutritional. So this one here is freeze-dried daphnia. It's been powdered up. Very good value, keeps great health. Other things you can get is like decapsulated brine shrimp. They'll eat that. And again, it's all about making sure that you do not feed too much. Otherwise you can have problems with ammonia. Overfeeding can bring issues with digestion. It can also cause bacteria to grow, so you have to be very mindful on how much you feed your fish. So once again, how much is left in your tank after 5 minutes? Whatever's left over has been too much. So the other things you can feed your guppies, which they really, and you cannot beat honestly, is live food. So you've got brine shrimp you can give them, which you raise yourself. They do like mosquito larvae and various other things. Water fleas, live daphnia, bloodworm. Freeze-dried bloodworm is also good, but it is very high in protein, so you want to watch how much you give, so it's better as a treat. So yeah, but when you also get things like mosquitoes, make sure it's come from a clean source, that it's not from a stagnant pool that's got lots of bad bacteria in there that you can give, or carrying parasites. So those are things to be mindful of. Okay, so guppies tolerate most waters, though they do tend to like a tank that's got plant in it, a real plant, not plastic. They just tend to do a lot better. They have places where they can have refuge if necessary, and girls getting away from boys so they're aggressing non-stop. So in this tank here we have albino type of guppy. Now I'm going to go through just some general types of guppies and just show you what they are. As there are many types you can get. Okay, these particular types are a type of albino. Okay, there are the various types of guppies, and these particular types are tuxedos. And the other thing I was going to say before is that even though they have a nice flow in water, they don't like a hard flow or heavy flow. A gentle flow is really nice. I enjoy that. But having it too hard, they're quite slow, they're quite long-tailed, and they struggle to swim as good in fast-flowing water. Then you have your endlers, which are similar to double swordtails. Tend to be a bit more colourful, a little bit more modified. The girls tend to be a lot bigger than the boys, where the boys are quite often very small in comparison. And they're not a very big guppy. They end up being very beautiful. You have your double swordtail style guppy, which you can also get like single swords, pintail, top sword, long sword, main body, single swords. They're just something a bit different. Just regular size with different style tail. what you call your X-ray tails, where the tails see through in parts, and it comes out kind of like a double swordtail in some ways, but it still has its full tail, which is a see-through kind of end. Right, these are lace type of guppy, similar to cobras and snakeskins, but not quite. These are lace, and in this case these are black lace. The other types you can get are the pastel type. In this case these are pink magentas. And then you have your cobra, or what's referred to as snakeskin. Then you have your general mix crossbred varieties, which are also just as nice, and you can crossbreed all the different varieties of guppies, and those are the ones that you usually find in shops and not your pure Australian, even though you do. These are the ones that you'll find really cheap. So generally guppies are very cheap. It's when you start getting into Pacific strains and then get into show quality is when the money in guppies do go up. But generally you can pick up very cheap ones, very easy to look after, as I said. And you can populate your tank quite fast. As I said before, they like lots of plant, they enjoy it in there, they can hide and do whatever. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this video, I hope it was informative, and I hope you got a lot out of it.